When you buy something, you know what? When I put my money down, when I go and I'm breaking it off and I'm thinking, I better get my money's worth out of this. I better get my money's worth out of it. When you spend $11.9 billion, you better get your money's worth. Just saying. I'm Cody from Wall Street Breakdown. Gilead. Gilead Sciences. They're a pharmaceutical company. They make all sorts of drugs. Don't do drugs, kids. Drugs are bad. But Gilead does stuff in all walks of trying to save people's lives or improve people's lives who maybe are suffering with something chronic. And kudos to you, Gilead. You know what? You put your money where your mouth is, and in this instance, it paid off. It paid off to the tune of FDA approval in the after hours today as Yescarta, a CAR T lymphoma treatment, received FDA approval. Now, Gilead spent $11.9 billion on this drug in August from Kite Pharma. We actually did a video on that because at the time, $11.9 billion for a drug really seemed like a few people might have known this was going to get approved. And Kite thought, we'll rather take the money, put it back into research and development, keep hammering away at stuff, while a company like Gilead, that is on the absolute front lines of the pharmaceutical industry, can definitely get this thing moving in the right direction. There wasn't a lack of communication, let's just say. Everybody knew what was going on. Yescarta's trials were doing phenomenally, and that was enough to make Gilead spend the big money. And when you spend your money, you want to get what you paid for. So like I was saying, Yescarta is a CAR T lymphoma treatment that reprograms the body's immune cells to recognize and attack malignant cells. So we're one step away from nanobots basically just being inside your cell and consistently making you 16 years old and virile. And I mean, isn't that what we're all waiting for anyways? Gilead's just this is the step before that step. Gilead closed the day at 80.01. It wasn't much, there wasn't movement. It just was there. Nobody was expecting this to come down now. This came down exactly when Gilead probably wanted it, on a day when the earnings calls weren't fantastic. Going into tomorrow, if something in the morning doesn't blow the Gilead news out of the water, and I don't think it will, Gilead was up in the after hours and is up, as of right now, 3.75%. I could see them holding on to all of that tomorrow, if not a little bit more. If you're already in Gilead, you're probably pretty happy because you're going to make a decent amount of money off this, because this was fantastic for them. Yescarta is projected to make $1.7 billion in sales in the next 5 years. This is big news. I mean, when you can add a drug like this to your roster, something that's really, really on the front lines of lymphoma treatment, this is a very, very big coup for Gilead. This was a big purchase in August. It's clearly paying off. Investors of Gilead have to like the company that they're riding with, because I mean, this really shows that there was some serious foresight involved. They understood that there was a lot of money potentially on the table to bring this in if everything worked out. Everything Kite Pharma had been doing up until this point, all the trials had said things were good. The transfer from Kite to Gilead has turned into, it's going to be a windfall. It's a when you can add a drug that's going to be the size of this drug into your roster, you really help push yourself and propel yourself into that next level when you're holding on to the best drugs in the world. Like you are going to reap the whirlwind of it. And I imagine Gilead is celebrating tonight an FDA approval. And I would imagine anybody that's an investor of Gilead would be doing the same. I'm looking forward to seeing how this all pans out over the next umpteen number of years, this could be much, much bigger than projected. Let's see where else this goes, because we all know certain drugs, they can find their way in a pipeline into multiple different directions. We're seeing that with a couple of different companies right now, Bristol Myers. We're seeing that with a couple of different drugs that are being used in multiple different drug combinations. This could only be the beginning. I'm Cody from Wall Street Breakdown. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, leave a thumbs up for this video. Why wouldn't you leave a thumbs up? That's an easy little click. You could do that simply. And maybe a comment over there where the comment is. I'd love to hear from you. We love hearing from you. And make sure you have yourself a marvelous day. Probably not as marvelous as Gilead's having.